Welcome to the notes on 3.2. Our goal today is that you can prove that lines are parallel using angle relationships. Okay, it's key. It's all right, building off what we learned in the last section of notes. So first thing, what is a transversal? We talked about this yesterday, but again, a transversal. It is a line that intersects two or more lines. Okay, and there's an example of a transversal there in red. And just remember that these tick marks, they don't mean congruent. They mean the lines are parallel. Okay, that's what that means, not congruent. That means parallel. Okay, and then notice these lines are called line A and line B. All right, we're going to use those same numbers throughout. So now we know that a transversal, it kind of forms these two different sets of angles, and those angles have relationships. There's four on top, four on the bottom, right? Four angles are formed when we have those intersecting lines. Now, so the first one we want to talk about now are corresponding angles. If you remember from yesterday, most of the names, they tell you what they are, but corresponding, remember, that means same spot. That's the only one that's not very descriptive. And again, I like to draw a box around each set of angles that are formed by that transversal and which ones are in the same spot. So if I call this one the top left, which one would be the top left and the bottom? That would be 5. So if you find that angle 1 is congruent to angle 5, so if that's the case, then lines are parallel. There's the parallel symbol, all right, straight up and down. So if any corresponding angles are congruent, that means that the lines are parallel. We can prove that every time. Okay, next one, alternate interior angles. Again, alternate, meaning each side of the transversal. Interior means inside, all right, in between the two lines that the transversal intersects. So let's take a look at some alternate interior angles. If I circle angle 3 here, which angle would be an alternate interior? It would be angle 6. So again, if we find that if angle 3 and angle 6 are congruent, then we have parallel lines. So if any alternate interior angles are congruent, we can then prove that the lines are parallel. Next one that we have, all right. Go to the top here. We're going to go, what about alternate exterior angles? Okay, again, alternate exterior. Now we're going to be talking about angles on the outside. Okay, so if I circle, I'll do 2 this time. Which angles would be an alternate exterior? It would be angle 7. So if angles 2 and angle 7 are congruent, or any exterior angles, could have been 1 and 8, all right, then we can say that the lines are parallel. So then parallel lines. Okay. Then what about same side interior, same side exterior? So same side, interior. So we're looking on the same side of the transversal. So I'm going to use angle 3 again, which would be the same side interior. It would be angle 5. Now this one's a little different. Okay, so if angle 3 and angle 5, you can tell they're not going to be congruent. One looks like an acute angle, one looks like an obtuse. If 3 and angle 5 are supplementary. Supplementary, remember what that means, adds to 180. Okay, then we know then we have parallel lines. So if you find that the angles are supplementary, then you can say the lines are parallel and they'll have those tick marks. Okay, all right, then we can prove that. And then same side exterior. Again, same side exterior. We talked about where these are yesterday. Go back and check out that video if you're not sure, but let's do 2. What would be the same side as 2? Exterior would be 8. So if angle 2 and angle 8 are supplementary, I'll just abbreviate, then we have parallel lines. So if you find that there are supplementary, you can then say that the lines are parallel, because that's what this lesson is all about, proving parallel lines, and that's how you can do it. Okay, what I've got here is a little chart, okay? With congruent, remember those mean that they're equal, and supplementary. Again, supplementary means adds to 180. So which ones were congruent? I want you to kind of go back and you can use this to kind of visually help you organize it. Well, we know that corresponding angles have to be congruent to prove parallel. We know that alternate interior have to be congruent. We know that alternate exterior have to be congruent. Okay, and the other one I don't want you to forget about is don't forget about that vertical angles. They're also congruent, but again, those aren't, you don't need transversal for vertical angles. Then which ones are supplementary to prove that they're parallel? Well, that's anything same side. So same side, interior, same side, exterior. And then again, don't forget about linear pairs. So you'll notice in all of these problems, the angles are either going to be congruent to each other or supplementary to each other. Keep that in mind. Okay, so can we determine the lines are parallel? I'm going to make up a problem here so you guys can see what this is going to look like. So I'm going to draw my two lines. Okay, this is what the problem will look like. They'll give you two lines. They look somewhat parallel, but you're not exactly sure. And then they'll put a transversal through it like that. And then they'll tell you some angles are congruent. They might tell you that this angle right here is congruent to this angle. And then you have to determine, are these parallel? And if so, how come? Well, those angles, they're congruent. Or do they have any special angle relationship? Well, if I put a box around it, you might see that both of those are in the same spot. So they're corresponding. So since they're congruent, we can say yes. All right, how come? Corresponding angles. Corresponding angles congruent. So that would be my reason. All right, those are problems that you will see in the homework. And then finally, the other one, they might get some algebra involved. Solve for x, the unknown variables. Well, we know that the lines are parallel, so that means we know we have these angle relationships. So these two angles are actually alternate interior angles. So what do we know about alternate interior angles? We know that they are congruent. So since they're equal, I can set them equal to each other. So I would just say 5x minus 4 equals 46. And then I just use my algebra skills to solve. I'd add 4 to each side, add 4. Okay, and then we'll have 5x equals 50. I think most of you guys, everyone knows what to do now. Divide each side by 5. So my final answer will be x equals 10. That's how we're going to use those angle relationships to prove that lines are parallel.